Okay, well, it's about 4 o'clock. I'm gonna go live now, and welcome to day 11. This is the 11th day of my art challenge, and of course, I've only been live streaming on weekdays, so I don't know if I'll have a chance to live stream over this weekend or not. But I'm still gonna make art Saturday and Sunday, and I'll definitely be back on Monday for some live streaming. Um, but today I wanted to, first of all, kind of just acknowledge for those of us here in the states, September 11th has a lot of significance. It's a very somber, reflective kind of day. It's the day of the terrorist attacks and 19 years ago. So as you're making art today, that might be something that comes up. Art's always a great way to reflect on those things. So um, anyway, just kind of wanted to mention that. And then the other thing is that yesterday, I think it was Linda had asked if I could share some of the ones that I've made over the last 10 days that I particularly liked, which ones were my favorite, and kind of show that. So that's how I'm going to start off. But as usual, if you're here and you're popping on, you want to say hi in the comments, let us know where you're tuning in from. Awesome, awesome. It's great to see a lot of the same names over and over again. And if you're new and you want to, let us know where you're tuning in from. That's awesome. So before I kind of dive in, I am going to say that I am extremely tired today. I was actually lying down a little while ago, and I was afraid I was going to fall asleep and miss today. And there's a big part of me that's just like, I'd like to be lying down taking a nap right now. And I say this, and I know earlier in the week I brought up my hot water, my water heater issues, and I bring those up not to complain about it, not to say, oh, look what I'm doing, but just to sort of share with you that, like, maybe even people that you follow online that you think like have this amazing life making art struggle, and we struggle with a lot of the things that just everybody does, and just that feeling of being tired and kind of worn out. It's Friday afternoon, and it's like it's hit me. So but the great thing is that making that commitment to, like, okay, I'm going to live stream this, so I know I have people that are going to want to see that gets me pumped, that gets me energized, that gets me up off the couch and up here live streaming to you all. So just kind of wanted to mention that, because I am feeling and kind of dragging. I don't know if anybody else is kind of feeling that way on this Friday, but just putting it out there just to say, like, look, this is what we go through. So like I said, if you want to pop into the comments and say hi and let us know where you're tuning in from, awesome. If not, that's awesome too. So today, like I said, I wanted to start out with kind of talking about the ones I've already done, just doing a real quick flip through and mentioning some of my favorites, just to kind of see, and if you have your own, if you've been working along and you want to kind of look through yours at the same time, awesome. But let me go ahead and switch over to that view. So I have them all stacked up here, and they're in order, I believe. And from the very beginning, I've set out like, okay, I know I'm not going to make a masterpiece every day, but I'm going to make art, and that's the important thing. So this is the first one I did. I really liked it. I think it turned out very well. I use a lot of myself. I think as artists, I think it was Rembrandt who basically said that he always had a model when he used himself. So you don't have to rely on other people. And today with cell phones, it's so easy to do selfies and do ourselves. So I really like how this one turned out. And so it's one of my favorite ones so far. Here's day 2. Yeah, it's okay. Not one of my favorites. And I think what it is, it just got too much. It's too busy. I don't know if I like the light bulb. I was just kind of, I hadn't used magazine, so that was like, let me use this magazine image of a light bulb. Not one of my favorites. This is a profile one I did. I like this one a lot. It is a little busy, but I think it kind of gets some of that busyness kind of gets covered up with some of the materials that I used, and it feels pretty cohesive. But yeah, I like that one a lot as well. This was day number 4. Again, I think it's just too busy. I think there's just too much going on, too many things. Just yeah, I'm not. This is probably one of my least favorites. But there are things I like about it. So it's not like, oh, I hate this whole thing, I'm going to throw it away. This was one that I did over the weekend. So this was from this past Saturday, and this actually is my favorite. And I think the reason it's my favorite is that it's one of the simplest, but it feels more open than the others. It's completely abstract, other than recognizable numbers. There's a map right here. So this just, I don't know, it has a feeling that I really like. I like the contrast with the yellow and the blue, but I definitely think this is my favorite so far of the 10 that I've done. And then this was day 6, so this was from Sunday. I didn't do a live stream of this one. Again, it got kind of busy. You see a lot of repeated of the repetition of squares like I've done in others, but I don't know. I don't think it works as well as some of the others. This one I like with the profile. Reminds me of the other profile. So this was day 7. I like it. It's not my top favorite, but I do like it. I think it's a strong piece. And this was day 8. This one I like a lot too, and I think it's partly because, again, using that image transfer of myself. But it even though it's kind of complex, it's also kind of simple too. And I like that. Again, I like those numbers. I've been really liking and digging some of the numbers from the bingo cards. So, and then this one was the totally different one. I think this one was a lot of people's favorite so far. I posted it on my social media, and it got a lot of likes. And it's very different, very organic, and it is one of my favorites. But I think that other one, that blue one, is ranks a little bit higher as far as which ones are my favorite. And I think there's a lot of good contrast with the yellow, the lighter versus dark, the yellow and kind of greens versus the oranges and reds. The organic flavor I definitely like in it. And then this was the one that I did yesterday for day 10, and not my favorite. I was trying to go a little bit simpler, but just don't think it works as well as a couple others. So I tend to like the simpler ones, the ones that aren't so filled with stuff. So I think that's kind of like what I'm aiming at, what I'm striving for, is a simpler kind of composition. So who knows what will come about it today. I haven't really thought too much about it, but I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. So and as always, if you've got questions or comments, feel free to use the or feel free to put it in the comments. So Kathy mentioned something about the copyright issues. So when you're using your own picture, you don't have to worry about copyright issues. And that's true, but then also you can use, let me go ahead and flip over, because I think that's something to kind of think about. Let's flip over to that, because copyright is it can be sort of something that's hard to understand. And there's something that's called fair use, and that's what a lot of artists use. And basically, they're saying, like, I can use somebody else's work if I'm using it in my artwork, and I'm not just reproducing it. And so you can use things like magazine images. You can use bits and pieces from books and things like that. And you might not get sued. One of the most recent ones that I kind of think of is Shepard Fairey, who did the Obama Hope poster, and he was sued by the photographer who took the photo, and they were going to go to court. They ended up settling out of court, so it never reached a decision. But Shepard Fairey's uh, basically claim was that, yeah, I based my artwork off of that photograph, but I basically changed it enough to kind of create something original. So copyright does come up a lot, but it's more about like just blatantly ripping off. So if you're using your own photos, yeah, you don't have any copyright concerns. If you're using magazines, that's usually not a problem, because you're not copying that magazine image. You're using the magazine image as part of it. And so the thing is that there's no hard and fast steady rule. When I was teaching, we kind of had this like 80%. If you were changing it like 80%, or if a copyrighted image was only 20% of your final artwork, then you'd probably be okay. But that's not like steadfast. Basically, the courts take it on a case-by-case basis. So anyway, so if that's something that you're concerned about, like, oh, well, I sell my artwork, and if I'm using this magazine picture, or if I'm using these old printed books and stuff, am I going to get in trouble? No, unless you are blatantly ripping off somebody. So kind of felt like that was a good time to sort of mention that. So anyway, that's my little 2 cents. Now, I'm not a copyright lawyer, but that's kind of my understanding of it. And so if you have concerns or questions, of course, talk to somebody that actually understands that stuff. Alright, so I'm using my Inktense paints just to kind of get something going. I'm kind of feeling those earth tones again. That yellow ochre, maybe a little bit of just yellow. So I just did something that I really haven't done before, and that's using 2 different colors to begin with. And a lot of times I'll let one layer dry and then use a color on top of it. But it's nice sometimes when the paint's wet, and then you can blend the 2 colors together a little bit more. But again, I'm not too concerned about making it perfect and smooth. I like that kind of texture of it. So. So if you're just kind of tuning in and you want to say hi, feel free to say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you've got questions or comments, feel free to pop them in the comments. And so I was just using my plastic mesh here to kind of scrape over top of some of those wet splots of color. I do have a couple different spreaders around that would work, or old gift card or things like that a lot of people use. But I like doing that. It just sort of smears it, makes it dry a little bit faster as well. I think I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in this. think I'll go with some circles today. One nice thing with working small, it's easy to fill up the space kind of quickly, and it's easy to really kind of see like the composition and thinking about. I think about that a lot. I think about how the image fills up the space, and part of that comes from just being a teacher for 20 years, and I mean that was one of the things that we were always trying to teach students is like, thinking about how your image actually fills up the space of the artwork. And so I think a lot of beginning artists, no matter the age, that kind of isn't on their radar as much as like, oh, I want to make something interesting, or I want to know like techniques. So it's just one of the reasons why I kind of like talk and share my thoughts as I work, is just to kind of talk about some of that, because I don't know if, especially if you take classes. So a lot of times, I've taught lots of classes around, and for adults especially, and don't often get into sort of like what makes for an visually interesting work of art. And I don't know how much that gets sort of talked about in some of the classes and some of the online tutorials. Sometimes it maybe seems a little technical, but it's something, like I said, after teaching public school for 20 years, it's something that I think about quite a lot. So I just kind of was thinking, like, if one of my concerns is getting stuff too busy, too complex, there's too much going on, then maybe a way to go is to be subtle. So I grabbed this. This is a orange glaze is the name of the color. So this is another one of my favorite Castell artist or Pitt artist pens. So it's just kind of a nice light orange and very kind of subtle. Goes really well with the colors that I've already chosen. So it might be a good way to add to the image without sort of overwhelming it or making it too complex or too complicated. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about with these lines is just sort of dividing up that space of the image and not just doing it like in a real even grid. And I use these mapping marks. I love kind of these road-like lines. And I think it's a great way to help divide up the space. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty subtle, so I don't know how much that pops up or shows up. Okay, so I think I'm going to get some of my Inktense pencils. So I've used these colors before, the Baked Earth, and this is the Willow, which is just a brown. Just put a little bit of shadow around these circles. Got this one down here. So this is one of my favorite techniques, to kind of shade around a shape, and then with the water-soluble pencils. So it's something I do with watercolor pencils, the Inktense pencils, or even like water-soluble graphite. Just kind of creates an instant shadow. And then it's easy enough to kind of fade the color and the value out. Alright, so sorry, something happened on my end where all of a sudden things went blank. There we go. Okay, looks like things are back up and running. No idea what happened. Gotta love the internet. Keep thinking that I want to use some text on here, just a old page from a book. Ties in nicely with the color scheme. So I cut these two strips and I kind of want them to line up, so I'm going to try to cut them about the same width. Because my idea is to put it straight down like that. Just realized I put glue on this entire piece, but I'm not going to need all of it. So I think I've done a pretty good job so far of keeping it fairly simple. I just want to be careful not to add too much to it. So I like the contrast of the red, and of course, kind of these red, almost kind of like blood vessel kind of lines. I mean, they're similar to lines you would see on a map for rivers and such, but because it's red, it really kind of reads as more organic, more like blood vessels. But again, ties back into that mapping that I like. So I think I needs to be a little bit darker. I do have a darker brown in here. So this brown is called dark chocolate. I'm just trying to be light with it. I don't want it to overpower. That's a problem with some of the darker water-soluble pencils, is that a little bit goes a long way. Even with paint, whenever you're using acrylic paint, sometimes a little bit of a dark color can go a long way. It can be really powerful. So the thing is, I can always darken it if it doesn't feel dark enough. But if I get too much down and it's too dark, I really can't lighten it. I might be able to put some water on it and maybe blot it up a little bit. But then again, I don't want to be like too timid about it. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to mess this up, so I got to be careful. So as I've painted over, I can see where some of that red ink has lifted off, and especially where I've gone over some of the Inktense pencils that were already down. That's alright, I can go back and touch it up later. So, I mean, the ink is waterproof, but yet it can still fade, especially because I didn't allow much time in between to let it like really dry and set. So I had this bit of a map from yesterday. Actually, it's part of the part of a map for the transit system out in Oregon. I got it when I was out there for Art and Soul, probably last year, since it was canceled for this year. I think that's a little too big. Yeah, I think that's a good size. So I like that on top, and it's a little bit different, so it's a good contrast, becomes a nice focal point for the piece. But I do want to kind of outline it, bring it out a little bit, maybe use some of this dark chocolate. Actually, before I do that, I was just thinking, like, this by itself might be a little much. So I think what I might do is cut a little piece. Yeah, I like that. I might put another one up here, make a nice little triangle with that. So if I just left this here by itself, it might seem too out of place. But by putting a little piece up here, and then maybe a little piece up here, yeah, it just helps it tie in a little bit better. I'm still trying to be careful. I don't want to do too much. Still want to kind of keep it simple. Got this one up here. So right now, these three pieces I just put on are really just kind of floating on top, and I want to do something to kind of help push them down in a little bit. So I think if I grab grab some of my punchinella and get a poppy red. That's a real bright red. So I'm just going to trace some of these circles. I'm kind of going to go in a line, skip every other one. Let's see, do the same thing over here. And it just puts a little bit of pigment down, and then when I paint over it, I could spread it onto the matte parts. That's going to help push it down a little bit. And then I'm going to take my red pen and go back over top of the red marks that I put in earlier. And this will also help push that the collage down into the surface a little bit more. Okay. So when I look at it, I feel like, oh, there's probably so much more that I want to do to it. But then I look at the clock and it's like, okay, it's been about an hour since I started live streaming, and that's kind of my limit that I'm giving myself. So I don't want to dive into doing something that's going to take a lot longer. So I think I'm just going to sign this one and call it done. That's the thing. Sometimes we'll stop, maybe short, and kind of feel like, hey, I can keep doing more and more to it. We've kind of talked a little bit about this before, that sometimes you add more and more to it, and instead of helping it, it kind of hinders it or uh, changes it, or basically doesn't do it much good. And you can just kind of overwork it. So I think I'm just gonna excuse me. I'm just gonna leave that the way it is. I'm looking at it. I kind of feel like I feel better about this one than I did yesterday's. I think it's working a little bit better. We'll see like how much I really like it. It's always good. It's always good to kind of come back to it later. So yeah. So there's day 11. I can't believe we're already up to day 11. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any concerns, any comments, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. And then, like I said, I always try to go back and look at the comments just to kind of see what people are saying, what people are asking, and then I try to answer any questions live. But then I always try to go back and answer them too in the comments. So, yeah. So day number 11, and I don't know if I'll be back tomorrow. I'm kind of doubtful if I will, but I am going to make art. So even if I'm not here live streaming tomorrow and Sunday, find an hour, sit down, make some art, and as always, share it. If you've been making art along with me, post it. A lot of folks are putting them in the comments, so it's always awesome to see what people have been working on. I know some of you are trying to follow along and kind of do some of the things that I'm doing. That's awesome. Some of you are just kind of doing completely your own thing, and that's awesome too. There's no right way or wrong way of kind of attacking this challenge, but it's always great to see what folks are doing. And so, like I said, you can post them in the comments. You can also tag me on social media, especially I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I do a little bit of Twitter, but not a whole lot. But you can tag me on any of those things. But yeah, so let me see if anybody popped any questions in. All right, well, thank you all. Thank you for the kind comments. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll definitely be back here Monday, same time, 4 p.m. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate those of you that, a lot of you keep popping in every day, so I really appreciate that. And other people are popping in maybe for the first time. That's awesome too. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and I'll definitely see you on Monday, if not sooner.